What conspiracy theory do you believe 100%? That software updates are designed to make devices worse over time so that you upgrade. My last phone was in perfect condition and had been for years. An update kept showing up and I would always refuse it. One day I said, "Oh, what the HL," and did the update. The next day my phone didn't work and wouldn't open. FK the phone industry. That's not a conspiracy. It was proven, and Apple was fined. Apple was fined. Apple was fined for not disclosing the practice to consumers. Not for the practice itself. Courtney Love killed, or had someone kill, Kurt Cobain. Then made it look like a suicide. There's too much out there that I need to have explained before I'll believe otherwise. Unfortunately, Cobain was a heroin addict who started using in his teens. IIRC, he was shooting up on the day his daughter was born. Addiction and depression are two fights hard to take on separately. Because Cobain had money and a successful career means nothing. Like Anthony Bourdain. Despite being surrounded by your accomplishments, family, and friends, sometimes it simply isn't enough to continue the fight. Most of the facts refuting his death as a suicide are pushed by those who profit from books and documentaries on the subject and are simply not true. I think so too, because he had too much heroin in his blood to be able to hold the shotgun. The Democrats committed election fraud during the primaries. In many states, Joe Biden won the districts that used digital voting while Bernie Sanders won districts that used paper voting. In Texas, several flash drives of voting data was found after it was declared that Joe Biden won the state. And in Georgia, thousands were stripped of their right to vote shortly before the primary. Hitler escaped to Argentina. That someone, somewhere knew the Pearl Harbor attack was coming. It's awfully convenient that all the carriers were out of port. As was one of Roosevelt's favorite ships. CA-35. USS Indianapolis. But weren't a lot of battleships destroyed? Which were seen as more valuable? Since aviation in naval warfare was new and its effectiveness not yet proven. Only 2 were permanent destroyed. And both were fairly outdated. And there had already been raids on Italian ports that proved that air power was the way of the future. Exactly. They didn't know it was coming. But they had been issued warnings. The commander at Pearl Harbor ignored them. That there are mountain lions living wild in the forests on the East Coast states, but for some reason the government won't officially acknowledge them. I have just read too many stories of hunters, hikers, and farmers who have seen them. One theory I saw was that the government doesn't want people to try and hunt them, so act like they aren't there. There are so many mountain lions on the West Coast, it never occurred to me that their existence elsewhere might be considered controversial. We East Coasters hunted the st out of them back in the 19th century. When Penn State chose their mascot, Nittany Lions, a mountain lion, there were still lions in the mountains of Pennsylvania. Now it's like a legend of the past. There are definitely still mountain lions in PA. That a bunch of anti-gay, pro-life Republican congressmen are actually gay and participate in secret orgies. I don't think that 9/11 was an inside job. But it was the golden opportunity that Dubia wanted to do what he pleased. He finished his dad's job and invaded Iraq. The people forgot the Enron scandal, signed Patriot Law, and other laws that he revised as he saw fit. It didn't help that he threw the 9/11 card at anyone who criticized him. Uesugi Kenshin, a Japanese daimyo, warlord, and one of the most powerful and cunning generals of his time. So much so that he was considered an avatar of the god of war. Was actually a woman. Let's look at some evidence that supports this. One Kenshin had severe stomach cramps on a monthly basis. Around the 10th of the month. He actually scheduled his military campaigns around this. 2 Kenshin's cause of death is recorded as a form of uterine cancer. By a doctor who made virtually no mistakes in the rest of the book that it's written in. 3 When the Uesugi were forced to relocate. They repeatedly took Kenshin's remains with them, and refused to tell even the shogun where he was interred. This rules out DNA testing. For Kenshin's personal tastes and appearance were consistently described in feminine terms, which, given the extreme subtleties of Japanese, is actually a bigger deal than it might seem. 5. Kenshin was the only man allowed by the shogun to wander among his harem. 6. Kenshin never married and never had children, although he did adopt. 7. He was described as beautiful with a very pale face and small features. Now the source for this theory is a pretty crazy historian. Forgot his name. But I believe it, and it's pretty interesting to think about. Nice to see a new theory. Homo. Not the intention, but mark me down as scared and HY. I believe that PETA is funded by the meat industry to make animal activists look like idiots. I could see the origins of PETA being that. But I believe the crazies moved in and took over, and now it's legitimately crazy. They don't all need to be agents. You just need a few agent provocateurs to keep things moving. I had never thought of this before. But it all makes sense. And it works. Whenever I say anything about animal rights, people assume I am one of the crazy activists that want to blow up meat factories and stuff. I am not one of them. Most animal activists aren't. Please people, listen to me. Milk isn't actually good for your bones. Or at least not better than any other source of calcium. It's simply easier to advertise that way than milk keeps you from feeling sad in winter. Pretty much any involving the Chinese government doing something malicious. That Russia helped Trump win the election. I don't even know if it qualifies as a conspiracy theory. Russia helped him. That's not really controversial. The conspiracy is that he worked with Russia to do it, or that he is a Russian agent, or that he is being blackmailed by Russia. The evidence, though, all points more towards Russia just moving obstacles out of his way to keep him from tripping while stumbling around in the dark. Russia only cares about him insofar as he is an agent of chaos domestically. Hobbles our ability to advance U.S. interests internationally. And damages the U.S. reputation everywhere. Investigators found multiple acts by the president that were capable of exerting undue influence over law enforcement investigations, including the Russian interference and obstruction investigations. But, the report said, quote, because we determined not to make a traditional prosecutorial judgment. We did not draw ultimate conclusions about the president's conduct. Quote, our intelligence agencies have confirmed that this happened. It's not a conspiracy theory. It's a fact. God. Just kidding. Bring on the downvotes. Meh. The Roswell UFO incident. Well, I'm not so sure about believing it 100%. But one I think could be onto something is that the most ridiculous conspiracies are made up to cover up more plausible and possibly true ones. When some idiot comes up to you and says the moon landings were faked, just look at him and say, you believe in the moon? Quote, you joke. But there are actually people who don't believe in the moon. Many flat earthers think it's just a sticker on the dome. I wish I was kidding. I've never met one. But I've heard horror stories. Jeffrey Epstein didn't kill himself and held incriminating information of the world's elite. That the 1% of richest Americans created a political system to keep themselves grotesquely wealthy at the expense of everyone else and keep them fighting amongst and blaming each other and not the 1%. The evangelical church is involved, as are the richest Russians. The Lincoln and Kennedy assassinations were planned by the same organization. But why male models? Are you serious? I just told you that a moment ago. The U.S. government killed MLK. He should have stuck with civil rights. Trying to align the poor whites and blacks was a step too far for the powers that be. JFK was never shot. His head just did that. That mattress firm is doing something weird. That the government makes these threads to see if we're onto them. Why does it matter? We won't do ST about it anyway. Maybe make some shitty memes or something. That Flight 370 was actually a hidden military project and that the government was trying to test planes that could distort radar patterns. That H. Holmes is Jack the Ripper. He had a medical background. Was in England at the time of the Ripper murders. Had a huge interest in women's reproductive organs and liked to have them to try to figure out birth control. And most compelling, his handwriting matches the handwriting of the authentic Jack the Ripper letters. After he returned to America, the only murders that Jack the Ripper committed were completely different, savage, which makes most of us believe it was a poor copycat. There's something at Area 51. Is it aliens? Probably not. UFO just stands for unidentified flying object. Doesn't mean it's alien. Pretty sure it's long been confirmed that Area 51 was a testing site for new aircraft. Blackguard, I think? The alien rumors were a useful distraction. Yeah. CIA declassified everything that happened there during the Cold War. They were actually developing stealth bombers there. And since they look weird, rumors started. CIA declassified everything that happened there during the Cold War. Read that again. Slowly. The lottery exists to catch time travelers. There is a hairy naked man high on drugs and has been eluding skeptics as Bigfoot for years. You have some GN respect. He used to be a veterinarian until he got his license pulled after Ricky got arrested. Fucking Sam Squanches. Sam Squanch. The Portuguese government knows what happened with the Cabo Verde synth ship. Omar Torrijos and Jamie Roldos Aguilera were both murdered. Someone knows what happened to Malaysia Airlines Flight 370. I refuse to believe that nothing came up with modern technology. The huge search teams. And the time spent looking for its remains. There's a great video on YouTube about it. The whole thing does seem very strange, and maybe the parts of the plane they found were faked to cover up something sinister. Frederick Valentich too. They found his plane, but they have no idea what caused him to crash other than a creepy radio conversation he had with ATC about strange lights hovering above him. The parts of the plane they found were faked to cover up something sinister. They flew too close to the kaiju portal. This one I genuinely don't think is that complicated. Planes crash all the time. We didn't find all the wreckage because it crashed in the middle of the ocean and not everything washes up on shore. I dunno, I never understood why this got so much attention. That Reddit has a high level of Chinese bots that influx anti-American propaganda to the front page. Kris Jenner murdered Nicole Brown Simpson and framed OJ to start her empire. That Jeffrey Epstein was murdered to silence him and prevent further disclosure about the honeypot he ran to get dirt on powerful men as a Mossad asset. Ultimately, it doesn't matter who killed Jeffrey Epstein. It could have been a hitman, a prison guard, or Jeffrey himself. What matters is that he died to protect a ring of powerful pedophiles who will face no consequences for their crimes. Yup. His accomplice and Mossad handler Ghislaine Maxwell hasn't been arrested. Les Wexner, who bankrolled the child sex trafficking with Bronfman, hasn't been arrested. They don't want to expose the truth. They want to bury it. He died to protect a ring of powerful pedophiles who will face no consequences for their crimes. Would they have, really, faced consequences anyways with their power and influence? I don't believe the facts of government conspiracies, but I believe the government is 100% doing some shady ST around the world. That's not a conspiracy. It's a well-known fact that governments do shady ST around the world. Always have. Probably always will. I'm convinced the US government propagates crazy conspiracy theories. Area 51. Flat Earth. Chemtrails, etc. to make the shady ST they've done on record sound less plausible. Building 7 was a controlled demolition. That this question is posted once a week by the FBI so they can make sure none of their top-secret operations have been figured out by the public. This is the FBI. Please delete this comment before we take action. Thanks for watching. Make sure to like and subscribe to the channel for more videos.